I was just asking Winston here whether he thought NVIDIA and AI was in a bubble, and he said, well, why don't you ask a billionaire investor? And thankfully, there is one who's just answered it. And he not just answered that, but he also said, is AI stock's going to fall? How is NVIDIA going to do in a recession? And I think you're going to like the answer. Now, the billionaire I'm talking about is Druckenmiller, who's a hedge fund legend, managed $12 billion when he shut down his hedge fund because it was a little stressful, he said. He traded through the dot-com bubble and many other crises, so the guy really does know a thing or two about what's going on here. Now, he says, look, there are lessons to be learned from the dot-com bubble, but he said, this is the real thing. This isn't just a 10-month kind of a dot-com bubble move. He said even the dot-com bubble actually lasted 2.5 years for many of them, 4 years for the Ciscos, the Sun Micros, and so on. So could NVIDIA go down? He said, yeah, it could, but it would surprise him if given the impact it's making. And I think that's what's interesting here. He said, look, it's already making the top coders in the world 7 or 8 times more profitable and productive than they were like 5 months ago. And that's such a big number that Winston had to lie down here. And I think that's the real difference, is that he basically says, I think NVIDIA is going to be something that we want to own for at least 2 or 3 years, and not for 10 months, and maybe longer than 2 or 3 years. Now, I worked in the dot-com bubble. I worked in a dot-com company, and they went, well, they had their funding cut. They sort of went out of business. They did survive in the end, it got bought up. But the difference there was that we were not looking to make any money. We were looking to make some sort of spiritual value add. We weren't really looking to make profits. We weren't really building things that we had a clear vision for how we're going to charge for them. That's very different than NVIDIA, right? They're creating a product for which there's a clear demand, a clear price point, a clear benefit, and therefore companies are willing to pay for it. Now, which AI stock is going to fail, and what does and how does NVIDIA stock do in a recession? Well, thankfully, he also answers that. He says lots of AI stocks won't make it, and we haven't really separated the wheat from the chaff or the rubbish from the good stuff yet. But he's saying, look, AI is real. It's a real thing. It's not like a crypto bubble. And he thinks that NVIDIA in a recession would have its earnings go up by 70% in a hard landing. So he's essentially saying that, yeah, it isn't really clear to me how NVIDIA goes down despite the lofty valuations. And you can have very good earnings in a recession if your business is sustainable, and therefore stocks might just do fine. And look at Germany, for example. Recession, Europe's in a recession, stocks are doing just fine. They're actually doing really, really, really well. So essentially, he's a bull. And that's kind of nice to hear, isn't it, on this? Now, should you short some of the rubbish in AI? This child walking past says yes, or did he say no? I'm not quite sure. But he's got some lessons on that too. And I think, yeah, there are some companies who are just renaming themselves and adding .ai to the website and that sort of thing. And that's definitely a warning symbol. That's a red flag for me. He gave an example. He shorted some .com stocks in March of 1999 with $200 million worth of Soros's money, and he lost $600 million on that. $600 million. Now, all of those 12 stocks went bankrupt in the end, every one of them. So was it smart to short it? No. Shorting can cost you an arm and a leg and everything else you've ever owned. So just don't do it. If you're thinking of shorting NVIDIA, or you're thinking of shorting anything, one of my head coaches says to me, and I was thinking about putting a trade on NVIDIA a couple of weeks back, and he said to me, lie down, Felix, and think about it for 24 hours. And that's exactly what I did. And I woke up and I didn't set up the trade. So I wanted to give you a little bit of kind of point perspective here from the hedge fund world, which is a little bit where I come from. And Winston, any other thoughts? Any final thoughts? Winston says hit that subscribe button, guys, and stay up to date with what's going on in the market and NVIDIA. Cheers.